I must say, I can say every places, be it in the private sector, be it in the government, be it in churches, in schools, there's corruption everywhere.
Kama unataka document, wanakuzungusha kamera 20 hivi. Haizi wakakwambia direct wanataka atido, lakini kuna venye wao wanataka pesa. Unaona, mwishowe wewe ndio utakuja kujazia hao watu wanataka kitu kidogo.
In the public sector, you find people have a time frame of doing time, they take 2 weeks. That is corruption. You told bring this form, somebody delays, tomorrow he tells you to do this, so that you really waste your time until you get that criteria and you do what he wants to do. That is corruption.
Me, I don't care these days. As far as me, najua niko na do kwa mfuko, nikitaka services, nikitaka kushughulikia chuo, as far as I have money, that's all.
Corruption nafikiri iko ndani ya damu ya watu, na unless watu sijui waokoke, Mungu awaonee huruma, tutaishi na maisha mengine mbaya sana.
Welcome to this presentation on integrity testing program. The aim of this presentation is to help you understand the concept of integrity testing and to enable you set up a comprehensive and functional structure for testing integrity in your institution. Integrity, which may be defined as the quality of being honest and morally upright, is essential to modern public service. It is, in fact, the cornerstone of good governance and is essential in maintaining trust in your institutions. It not only provides a foundation for effective governance, but also assures citizens that your institution is working on their behalf. Indeed, expectations of citizens, businesses, and the civil society drive governments to ensure that appropriate standards of integrity in the public service are in place. As a result, governments the world over have in the last decade made substantial efforts to develop institutions, systems, and mechanisms for promoting integrity and preventing corruption in their public service. Governments are under growing pressure from citizens and the civil society to show progress made in promoting integrity and preventing corruption. In addition, and Kenya is no exception, are increasingly expected to verify whether integrity policies are achieving their objectives in order to foster a favorable environment that improves the quality of life of their citizens. The traditional practice has mainly focused on assessing the existence of selected tools such as laws, codes of conduct, or administrative procedures. This approach is inadequate as it fails to develop practical measures to determine how these policies shape behavior of public officials. It is on this basis that during a high-powered meeting of permanent secretaries, accounting officers, and heads of corporations, which took place at the Kenya Institute of Administration on 5th and 6th February 2010, the head of state, His Excellency President Mwai Kibaki, raised the anti-corruption agenda further up by directing government ministries and departments to institute integrity testing systems. Invariably, this led to a policy resolution requiring the public service, and I quote, to institute integrity testing programs in the respective ministries and departments to create an aura of omnipresence of the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission in all government agencies as a measure to deter corrupt practices. Consequently, integrity testing was made one of the corruption eradication criterion assessed by the Performance Contracting Department in the Office of the Prime Minister. Today, integrity testing is a permanent feature in the public service. The integrity testing program is one of the 3 components forming the integrity management system. The first component is the ethics infrastructure. This requires your institutions to develop binding working rules and regulations, standard compliance and operating procedures that prescribe behaviors expected of public officials in their respective roles. The Code of Conduct is a good example. The infrastructure must also establish a supervisory function to monitor compliance with these rules and regulations. The corruption prevention committees and integrity assurance officers are expected to play an important role to ensure that an ethics infrastructure is in place and functioning properly. The second component is quality assurance. This is a kind of systems audit to verify whether the ethics infrastructure is suitably designed to promote integrity and prevent corruption. The third component is compliance testing, or in other words, integrity testing. And this is the subject of our presentation today. Integrity testing has been recognized as an important tool for encouraging integrity and promoting efficiency, transparency, and accountability in service delivery by public institutions. Integrity testing is a tool for encouraging integrity. The vast majority of individuals in the public service are committed, honest, and competent officers, and consistently demonstrate high standards of personal and procedural integrity in performing their duties, and still more would do so given the right institutional support and training. But in every institution, there exist elements contaminated to some degree by failure to maintain those levels of honesty and professionalism, and this is typical of any organization. It is also a mechanism that verifies organizations' professional integrity. The existence of a proactive and effective integrity system gives comfort to management that professional standards are being met. It is also a proactive method of maintaining integrity and public confidence by robustly dealing with corruption and misconduct and other malpractices in the public service. Integrity testing has three main objectives. The first objective is to identify officers who are honest and trustworthy and therefore likely to be suitable for assignments to sensitive areas. The second objective is to increase the actual and perceived risk of corruption by creating an aura of omnipresence, thereby deterring corrupt behavior and encouraging officials to report when offered bribes. The vast majority of officers in your organization act with complete honesty and integrity. When properly informed, they recognize and support those policies that exist to prevent unacceptable conduct and will actively challenge behavior that they perceive as being corrupt. The effects of challenging and reporting such questionable conduct can only contribute to the enhancement of the professional reputation of your institution as a credible and trustworthy organization. This, of course, includes each and every individual concerned in the provision of services, from those who work in numerous support roles to those at the point of service delivery. The third objective is to identify particular officers who engage in corruption and misconduct and to determine appropriate courses of action. The cost of corruption is certainly considerable. Such activity can flourish under the influence of just one corrupt person who remains either unchallenged or unrecognized, infecting entire workforce and contributing to low morale and poor performance. Perceived failures in addressing corruption effectively and robustly will further add to the eroding of trust in your institution. The challenge of confronting and eradicating the existence of corruption and other malpractices is considerable, but it does not begin to equate with the potential cost and damage caused by recognizing that the dangers exist and then ignoring them. An integrity test consists of creation of an artificial situation replicating the normal day-to-day situations that officers experience, during which the integrity of the officers involved will be tested. Integrity is tested in that an officer will be presented with an opportunity to commit misconduct or corruption without realizing that they are being monitored closely. The idea behind the secretive integrity testing is to establish an aura of omnipresence, demonstrating your organization's vigilance in that the officer could reasonably think that any interaction with a member of the public, including potential corruptors, could be a test. There are two types of integrity tests. On the one hand, there are targeted integrity tests, which are conducted against specific officers or a group of officers where information is available that points to problematic behavior. Targeted integrity tests will only be deployed as a result of specific intelligence or credible information. On the other hand, there are random integrity tests, which are not conducted against specific officials. The random factors is that institutions do not know exactly which officer will be tested. These tests are conducted at a particular place, and any of the officers on duty could undergo the test. Integrity tests can range from simple one-off engagements to more sophisticated operations that take place over time. The important factors in relation to these types of tests will include to try and capture the officer's response to the test on video or audio tape, never allow the officer to know that they have been subject to the integrity test. However, a decision whether to disclose the results of an integrity test to the member of staff who has been the subject of that test may be made by the chief executive on a case-by-case basis. As a general rule, the institution will not tell officers if they have passed an integrity test, but, as stated earlier, the chief executive has the discretion. If they fail, you'll find out when they are presented with evidence against them. The consequences of failing a test depend on what occurred and can lead to internal disciplinary steps or training if regulations were not followed. The criminal acts picked up during the test will be prosecuted in the courts. An integrity test, therefore, creates a realistic condition or situation designed to generate a reaction by an individual or individuals so that their conduct, behavior, and professional standards can be assessed. Experiences have shown that it is not enough to clean up an area of corruption only when problems appear. Instead, systems must be developed that help to ensure that follow-up testing is undertaken. It is most desirable to carry out widespread publication of the fact that consistent integrity testing is performed at regular intervals, even where this is not possible. The object is to convince potential bribe takers that integrity testing is performed regularly. The very fact that officials know that the tests are taking place will encourage them to report approaches, as they will not know which are genuine and which are tests. A comprehensive structure must be established to show the functions and assign responsibilities to individuals who will manage the program. At the heart of the program is a program officer, whose role is to implement it. In exercising his or her authority, the program officer is accountable to the chief executive. He or she will carry out risk analysis and maintain effective procedures for detecting and reporting corruption, misconduct, and other malpractices. As the program officer is endeavoring to establish wrongdoing, it is important to remember that he or she is dealing with potential wrongdoings and other misconduct largely committed by the organization's own staff. The officer must, therefore, essentially develop sources of information within the organization itself and not rely solely on what is acquired from third parties. The primary internal sources of information are confidential informants, a network of employees who confidentially provide intelligence. And needless to say, this is not an easy task. The program officer will also be required to design appropriate and realistic scenarios and progressively evaluate the performance of the tests to ensure that they are of the highest levels of professional integrity and objectivity. The scenarios must be compatible with the allegations. Program officers are also encouraged to keep scenarios as simple as possible and to keep in mind, among other considerations, safety factors, legal considerations, resources, and time limitations. The program officer will also be required to present to the Oversight Committee a monthly summary of the results of the activities and results of incidents reported, investigated, and tests carried out. To be effective, the program officer will be required to establish and manage two functional units. These are the Secretariat and the Operations Unit. The Secretariat's role is to constantly popularize and promote awareness of the existence of the program and also to gather intelligence on corruption and misconduct, with the responsibility for also compiling relevant information. It should be staffed by one supervisor and two officers, one being an analyst. The analyst's work is to gather information on corruption and misconduct from a variety of sources, verify allegations that have been obtained, prepare data into meaningful narrative or graphic presentations, and distribute the information in a way that is accessible and useful for carrying out the tests. The Operations Unit will essentially be a covert unit headed by a case officer and will deal with members who voluntarily assist the Secretariat in obtaining information that can be used in establishing corrupt practices. The unit will execute the integrity tests and carry out sting operations where necessary. The analyst will always coordinate the work of the Operations Unit. While the Oversight Committee may be able to review the operations of this unit, none of the identities of any member assisting the unit should be revealed. Because of the sensitivity of this aspect of gathering corruption-related intelligence, the disclosure of methods and operations of this unit would undermine its effectiveness. Largely, this service will be provided by the Covert Operations Unit at the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission. This unit will utilize proactive efforts that will include debriefing those who do business or are served by an organization potentially to gather relevant intelligent information. For example, taxpayers may offer information regarding corruption in exchange for consideration regarding their tax assessments. Similarly, cooperative importers who collude with officers in order to have their goods undervalued, misdeclared, or diverted